I'm
trying
not
to
getting
save
a
our
stream
boys.
of
Yes, sir.
questions. I
And
hope you guys are here.
I'm going to associate this with the economical blueprint plan that Farrakhan talked about. We don't trust one another, for one. That's our biggest problem. We won't question 10% we put in that church.
No, we don't.
But we'll question that nickel a day that Farrakhan was talking about in the economical blueprint plan. A nickel a day, 16 million people giving a nickel a day. After that month, you got $291 million. And black folks, a lot of us, I hate to say it, don't see the big picture. Like me, when I think big, I think, okay, I'm going to be on that 20th floor in this building, and I'm going to own this building. So, like, when you said Darren Wilson raised $250,000 in 1 week, white people stick together in they mess.
Right.
Period. We as black folks, we question everything. We won't question that 10%. So if I'm making $1,000 a week, the church want to see $100 plus some. We won't question that because Malachi 3 said we got so much coming back, we ain't going to have room to store.
And some churches actually put you under contract.
Under contract, yeah.
That's an after effect of slavery.
Mega churches want to see your tax return.
Right.
They want the tax. You can't even join unless they see your tax return at a mega church.
How close are you to the $2 million?
Well, remember, $2 million is no longer the goal. The $2 million was for St. Paul's College.
Okay.
So at this point, we're looking for a small to medium-sized school to get started. And the start date will be August 21st, 2018. Remember I said earlier, we had a Catholic school that we were going to lease in Mount Vernon, New York. I thought that was the school until I got a call yesterday that they are no longer interested in leasing to me.
Your services are no longer needed.
But once again, it goes back to that cultural
Probably because they
condition.
knew I was going to snatch that white Jesus picture down right over the auditorium. That was the first thing.
Hello!
I'm going to burn that damn thing in the name of the black God of Africa. Yes, Lord. The African.
We got a
Holy
question
How
over here.
much money are we sitting on now?
500,000.
500,000. And that's been over the course of how long?
2
Get
years.
his attention.
Okay,
We
question
need to
right
get Mike.
Devin, oh, right here. I'm sorry. No, you gotta get it. I'm sorry.
Doc, I want to ask even if we are able to create this infrastructure, then we're able to create independent schools. Then what's then to stop whites from then saying, okay, you guys have independent schools, we're going to snatch funding from your unindependent colleges that we pay for?
Well, they're already snatching funding away from the unindependent colleges that they already paid for. In fact, I hate to say this, but in the next 50 years, you may only have 5 to 10 HBCUs left. See, most HBCUs were founded with land grant money and from white abolitionists. No harm in that. No harm because we came from nothing. No harm in that. But because the financial infrastructure was always dependent upon white support, whenever they decide to stop supporting you, your whole operation falls.
True.
So, you know, they're already doing that. They want every HBCU to be colonized by the closest, largest white university. So take Philadelphia where I live. Cheney, our oldest. Lincoln, our second oldest. They want them to come under the University of Pennsylvania. And they're doing a South Carolina State. I spoke there last year. They want them to come under the University of South Carolina. They're trying to get every black school to basically capitulate. And we can't let that happen because even though black schools have their issues, the truth of the matter is we would not have half of the black educated professionals if it wasn't for HBCUs. Half of your teachers are HBCU. Over 40% of your doctors are HBCU. Over 30% of your black undergrads are HBCU. If you let them kill the HBCU, you kill the black middle class.
Because the mother schools ain't going to let you in.
Question.
Thank you.
Period.
They're not letting you in.
They're not letting
We
you
are
in.
always looking to the celebrity or the athlete to make a donation for the HBCUs. Why can't myself, Jay, H. Cortez, Doc, each every person, let's say, donate $20 throughout the nation and help these HBCUs? Why won't we do that?
We should do that, but I'm going to put a little spin on what you said.
Okay.
Our money should be going to grade schools for our children. Independent schools. Let me tell you why.
Okay.
Because the HBCUs, they're controlled by white folks.
That's true.
And since our celebrities and athletes are also controlled by white folks, they are the ones who should be taking care of the HBCUs because donating to an HBCU will not be considered the threat that it would be if you donated to the Dr. Umar Johnson Academy. Let's look at white celebrities. They give heavily to their alma maters. Do you know why Harvard and Yale have this new African American minority scholarship where if you score perfect on your SATs and you graduate with a 4.0, you can go to Harvard and Yale for free. Do you know why they did that? That was part of a settlement with the IRS. Why? Because Harvard had more money than the United States government. And they said it was an issue of national security and you have to liquidate some of your wealth because it's not healthy for an institution to have more money than the government itself. That's how much money Harvard and Yale's graduates give to them. Now let's look at Oprah. You went to Tennessee State. How much have you given to Tennessee State, Oprah? Let's look at Puffy. You went to Howard. How much have you given to Howard, Puffy? You look at a lot of these actors. They went to HBCUs. Tony Braxton went to Bowie State. What are y'all doing to give back to the schools that y'all came from? Because the white folks are definitely giving back.
But why is the responsibility on them?
Because I don't think we can support HBCUs, don't get me wrong. But your biggest issue is not the HBCU. Your biggest issue is making sure your child graduates so he is even in a position to attend the HBCU. See, we got to get our kids out of school first before we can look to the HBCU. I just don't want us putting the cart before the horse. I think we should support them, but I think it's safer for the celebrities to do it, and we stick to building the grade schools. Because I'm going to come at you another way. HBCUs were created why? To teach black people how to fit. The HBCUs were built to teach us how to fit into a white reality. But if we properly educate our children in grade school, they will not have to fit because they will be able to create their own reality.
Question, Doc. Do you feel you are a marked man?
No more than any other black man.
You say.
No more than any other black man. We all marked, brother. Which is why I don't understand why black men don't speak up. They say, Doc, I'm scared for you. You better be scared for yourself. The white man don't put us in no boxes. Look what they did to Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby made a whole career out of making white folks laugh. Bill Cosby, we from the same neighborhood, right down the street. Bill Cosby spent the last 20 years of his life defending racism to black folks. And look what they did to Bill Cosby. They found 20 ugly white women, made them all go public at the same time, and said he molested them 40 years ago. Now, does it make any sense for the most popular male actor at the time
Can I say this?
to molest multiple white women? Check it out. And they had a sister. Listen, when I was a little kid, he molested them. He's the top box office star in America.
Right.
You don't say nothing. You let 40 years go to the man is old and no longer an economic powerhouse.
Right.
And y'all want to come out and say he all molested y'all at the same time. That was a setup.
And Bill O'Reilly got paid $25
And
million.
that's what I was just going to say. Bill, and they also, along with Bill Cosby, they pretty much every network until
Yes.
Bounce recently, this past fall, put his show back on. Everybody else took all his shows off. But tell me, how is Bill O'Reilly walking away from Fox with $25-30 million?
White privilege. Not only that,
same
look at
reason
all
And
the other white
women
males.
have come out against him and everything, but I don't know if anybody else get the feeling, but
It was
I got the
political
feeling that
president.
Fox
It was-
protected him all through tooth and nail. They was
Look at Ben
protecting him.
Roethlisberger. Ben He won't. Look at Marv Albert. I mean, look at these rapes that these white men
Marv
done.
Albert did some dirt, too,
The
boy.
Duke lacrosse team.
And look what happened to Kobe.
Yeah.
Well, you know that's the only. You know that's why Kobe never got on the Wheaties box, and that's why Kobe only got one MVP in all them years. That white girl, when he did that, or what they claim he did, anyhow, okay, that destroyed his whole image, and that's why they couldn't wait to put LeBron out in front of Kobe, and Kobe knows it. And that's why we got to understand white supremacy. Because when you understand white supremacy, you know a lot of these strategies we talking about will never work. Because white people are ruthless in defense of their power. And no law, no paperwork, no concepts, no lawsuit gonna change that. Here's what we need to understand. At the end of the day, the only way you gonna get freedom is the only way the Russians got it. It's the only way the Brits got it from the Germans. It's the only way the Indians got it from the British. You got to fight for it. Ain't no bloodless way out of this. Ain't no bloodless way. And black people keep looking for, well, maybe if we just fill out the right paperwork, maybe if we just file the right international lawsuit, maybe if we march enough, pray enough, vote enough. Ain't no mystery to how you get out of this. Name me a revolution where people ain't have to shed no blood. That's the only way you getting out of it. You can't name yourself out of this.
Here's what we got to have. And Dr. King said it. Here's what we have to have. And Dr. King said it. He said the Negro is in a powerless state. And what do we have to have is power. And power is simply the ability and the opportunities to influence decisions that affect our lives from a spiritual, social,
But
and
power is taken.
Thank you.
No, power
Thank
is
you.
Not giving.
Let me finish.
Don't nobody give you power.
No.
Show me a
Hang
people
on.
whoever has
Listen,
power
hold
given.
on.
Listen.
You got to take
Hold on.
power.
My name is
Here,
Dallas,
here,
right?
hey, listen.
I used to watch the nighttime soap opera, Dallas. Bobby Ewing went to Jock, the father. He was whining about JR and the underhanded stuff that he does, and Jock rushed up on him and he said, "You don't, power is not given to you." He said, "You take it."
Frederick Douglass.
And here-
Power concedes nothing without a demand.
There's
It never
four
did, and it never
sources
will.
to power.
There's four what now?
There's 4 sources to power, and when you get all 4 of them working together interdependently, you now got power atom operating at its optimum to bring about change. And it's my formula, ATKO, the anointing.
What are
God
the
is.
4?
I'm gonna give them to you. Number 1, God said in Deuteronomy 18, "I've given you power." So you've been anointed.
Okay.
Get power to get wealth.
2.
So that's A. Number 2 is force, teamwork. If we come together around a common
You
cause,
said force?
force.
That's the force is taking.
This is like, hang on, force, we come together and
Oh, as a
organize
force.
as a team,
Okay.
we can be a force. That's been our problem. We've never came together. We've been saying we need to come together, and it has never happened. So we're going to have to learn the 17 laws to teamwork. The next source to power is knowledge. The only difference between rich people and poor people is not money, it's knowledge. If you knew what they knew, you'd be there too. And the last source to power is wealth, and it's only created through the ownership of land, labor, and capital. So when you have all 4 of those, ATKO, you now got power operating at its optimum, and it is the tool of change to get us off the bottom.
H. Cortez, I need you to chime
Yes, we
in.
need Cortez on the mic.
I think that
You can take
works.
it out.
I can take it out. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that is the way that we should be going, but at the end of the day, that don't stop the ruthless white man.
Thank you.
At the end of
You
the
got
day,
to have an
so
international perspective.
let's think about this for a second.
Let me pause you super quick, Cortez.
Okay.
Hold on. Go.
So let's think about this for a second. Black Wall Street had all of that.
But they didn't have an army.
What up?
And they also,
And you will
They
not
were-
be allowed to
they-
have
hey,
a
let me tell
domestic
you something.
army. That's why you need international
Black Wall
allies in other
Street
nations.
was independent. They were not interdependent. And I know them down there. Listen, they did not have,
Microphone.
they were independent. They were not interdependent. And see, we live in an interdependent society. And
So
we
they
have
need to interdepend with who?
Let me give you an example.
Who?
If we're
No,
going to
who?
be
Who?
effective, they were by themselves. They were isolated.
Who did they need to
and-
be with?
Hey, they needed other folks like you and I, but they were not organized as from a national perspective. They were.
I don't agree with that.
Well,
No, they
okay.
just didn't have an
Black
army.
Wall Street.
But
They
they
have
had
Bob
an
Lyle,
They didn't
who's
have
the
security.
grandson.
They didn't have security, and they were
They
forced.
did have security.
They were forced to work together because Oklahoma changed the laws on them. They had to work together.
Well, the reason that they came with the ruthless force that they did because those brothers stood up.
Exactly.
No, it's not. Is it working?
The problem in his analysis is he's not taking into account the international geopolitical chessboard. You got to take into account the international geopolitical chessboard, which is to say, any nation that doesn't have allies will not survive. And that includes us. And how the hell you going to go and build allies with African nations and Central and South American and Caribbean nations talking about you ain't one of them?
Let me tell you
That's
what-
a recipe
let me
for
tell you-
disaster.
let me
Who
tell
do
you
we
what-
align ourselves with, though, Dr. Umar Johnson?
The African nations, the Central and South American nations, and the Caribbean nations. You need global leverage. Everything done in the world is done through a gang
agree with
system.
you.
Why did America go and take Gaddafi out? Because they had Britain backing them up. They had France backing them up. That's what's going on here.
'Cause Gaddafi
The
was gonna
world
take
is
that
ran
money
like
out.
a gangster. The world is a gangster operation. It ain't ran by no laws.
But also-
You can do everything he says, but until you have an international political standing where you got countries who are going to rush in to aid you, nothing will stand. Nothing will stand.
Also-
Listen, it is a contradiction for white power to allow black power next door. It is a country. The Civil War was fought why? Because the poor white man in the South wanted to be independent from the rich white man in the North. The Civil War was the bloodiest war in American history. This Caucasian killed his own brother to stop America from becoming two separate nations. And you gonna do it? It don't work that way. The only way you'll be able to do that is if you got the leverage of the African states backing you up. And do you know why it would work? Because what country you know on earth can survive without the resources of Africa? What country do you know on earth can survive without? So if Nigeria tells America, let them do what they need to do, or you ain't getting no more gas or oil. If South Africa tells America, let them do what they do, or don't come here for no more silver and diamonds. Africa is the leverage. And we need to be claiming our African identity, not running away from it, because our political and economic salvation is in our Africanity.
Go ahead.
Well, also along the lines of Gaddafi, you also got to realize he was going to be the first African nation to start a bank.
Right.
That was a big problem.
He's Central African Bank. That's why they got him.
That's the main reason why they got him. And that would have been a big problem not only for this country, it would have been a problem for the Russians.
White supremacy. Because you're fighting white supremacy.
Because he already had most of all the other African countries on board ready to pull their bank from the international
And it was
banks.
their idea. Gaddafi just had the money.
Exactly.
Let me ask this question.
It's Pan-Africanism or perish, my brother. It is Pan-Africanism or perish.
I like the piece. Is white America going to allow black Pan-Africanisms to create and start their own black banks in America?
You can start them, but you're either going to have to repatriate them to a black country, or you're going to have to build an international power base through your neighboring ally states to force America to leave you alone. It's one or the... See, you have a future outside of Africa, but you don't have a future without Africa. Whatever you do, you got to have an agreement with African states that y'all will back us when we do this, and in turn, we will back y'all. It has to be hands across America. Can it be done? Yes, but you need leverage from African states. You cannot do it alone.
I got
Any
one
solution, let me say, any solution that does not involve Africa for black America will fail.
You have a lot of African Americans from this country that are moving back to Africa. And
Yes.
setting up businesses and,
Yes.
and are making
They're
millions.
retiring over there.
Exactly.
In fact, they're retiring so much. Do you know that some of the pension companies have rewritten a policy and they say if you move out of America, you don't collect your retirement.
Right.
That's how many blacks going back to Africa.
Yeah. I had an opportunity about 5 years ago. My dad, or I mean, this was about 9 years ago before he passed away. We couldn't figure out the ulterior motive, but it was a white company that wanted to sponsor my dad's company and us move to Africa, which my dad was like, I'm not moving to Africa. I got too much going on here. So it was basically boiled down to me and my brother. So they wanted us to move to Africa, set up our business there, and they were going to bankroll everything. But my dad never told me why, but he was uncomfortable with a white company bankrolling us. He felt like somewhere around the line, exactly, he felt like he did not have 100% control, did not trust. So, but the money was incredible. I mean, you seeing people, and I think it was HBO or Showtime did a special on African Americans leaving this country, going over to the different parts of South Africa, starting business, and living in, getting land, purchasing homes that would cost you $5-10 million mansions here. And they get them for $400,000-500,000 or less.
The same thing happened to my dad. He retired as a sheet metal worker. CNR Heating and Cooling wanted to put him in his own black-owned business. They wanted to put him, what is it called when they can get the minority contract? And that's what it was. They were going to front him.
Disadvantaged business. They
were going to front him, have him be the figurehead for his own business, but they would own 51% and he would own 49%. And he said, no, that math doesn't even add up. If I'm going to be doing this, then I need to have the upper, okay? And they pulled out. But you want this minority contracting money. And that's all it was to get the money. Yes, sir.
I think they wanted the face as well.
Well, of course, because the more dollars would come toward that company.
Exactly. Young lady has a statement.
Using the black. Go ahead.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
I agree, but
need you to close the mic.
until we get our
Put the
mindset,
mic up to you.
until we get our mindset in the proper
Yeah,
set,
hold on,
our other countries are waiting on us to get our mind
Yes.
right so they can help us.
We the key.
Because they're not going to come over here and help us, and then you're going to have some people saying, well, I'm going back to doing
Exactly.
what they wanted us not
Exactly.
to do until everybody get on accord. They sitting up like, wow, I can't believe they letting them do us like this.
Exactly.
Is the black as a whole afraid to get too far away from the plantation?
Absolutely. Slavery conditioned
Comfort
us
zone.
to believe we cannot survive without white folks. Think about it. Soon as we graduate from college, what's the first thing you do when you get your first master's degree? Move to a white neighborhood. Look at black educated males. Black educated males marry white women more than all other men in America put together as a percentage. We go to church and pray to a white Jesus. Slavery been over 153 years, and most black folks still pray to a white Jesus. I know because I do therapy in the houses. They still got white Jesus hanging up. Black women spend $9 billion a year looking like white women. I mean, we are in love with white folks. We don't want to leave white folks. We addicted to white folks. Black people will kill you if you try to get away from white
It's
folks.
called cognitive dissonance.
I'm serious, y'all. We love white folks.
They don't want to believe it's cognitive dissonance. They don't. They
We
just
love
not
it.
going to never believe that. Okay, they're never going to believe that what they learned was not true. And for you to unlearn everything that you ever learned and relearn the real,
Okay.
that's a culture shock. It's like a nightmare.
Well, once
You
again,
know,
we've been
people
culturally
don't wanna
conditioned to
realize.
believe white is superior, we're inferior.
Bingo.
And Martin Luther King said it best: the two most deadliest things on the planet is sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity.
Right.
And we have a lot of that.
Dr. Umar, how do you take the kindergarten child, male and female? What are you teaching? And what are you teaching in your school?
Okay, let's do the school curriculum.
Okay.
6 core curriculums in addition to the main. You gotta have math, gotta have language, gotta have science, gotta have history.
Debbie do.
Okay.
Aside from that, economic and financial science. By the time the child finishes the 9th grade, they will know how to do their own taxes. By the time they finish the 10th grade, they will be trading stock on Wall Street. By the time they finish the 11th grade, they will have their own business plan. By the time they graduate, they will have mastered the real estate market in their home nation. And the reason we're doing that is because all we want to do is send our kids to college. College isn't doing anything but putting black people into debt. We got 2 million African Americans with master's and doctorate degrees in this country who cannot even find work. So our school, it has a economic foundation. We want to teach these young men how they can make millions out of high school. You don't need college to get rich, and the top richest 1% of people in this country never went to college a day in their life. The second is agricultural science. We want to teach them how to grow their own food so we can start eating healthy, because 85% of black folks who die in this country die from diet-related preventable disease. Third curriculum is political and military science. That is understanding the art of war and understanding white supremacy. Why do we have a homosexual problem all of a sudden? Why is it so big? Is this by design, or is this an accident of nature? Why was Barack Obama made president? Was this by design, or was this Jesus coming back? Why is Africa the richest continent on earth, but the people are in the poorest condition? Why is a black woman the least likely to get married out of all the women in America? So we want to make sure they understand the world as it is, the rules of racism. All white people are racist.
How do you teach them to love themselves?
That begins early. When a child is in preschool, the parents must take very good care to make sure that every image that they see is one that is self-affirming. You must condition the love into the child early. The problem with African children, what do we give our babies? White cartoons, white Barbie dolls, white movies, Transformers. So by the time the black child goes, and then a white Jesus on Sunday. So by the time the black child goes to kindergarten, he had already been taught self-hate. We want to blame the school, but he did not learn it in public school. He learned self-hate in the black Sunday school. And the second thing for young children, vocabulary. The vocabulary of a child will grow by millions of words between the age 2 and age 5. That's when you're supposed to be reading. Guess what we do between 2 and 5? Put them in front of the television.
They give them the tablets
So
now.
the time when the brain is most receptive to expanding its vocabulary, we dumbing it down with TV, video games, iPads, and Xboxes. The way we raise our kids, totally dysfunctional. It is totally dysfunctional.
That is one reason why growing up, I appreciate my mother and my father, because TV was limited and reading was a must. And we spent at least a half hour to an hour every night. It was cut the TV off, grab a book, I don't care what you're reading, go sit down in your room and read.
If it was up to me, a house with school-age children wouldn't even have a TV in it.
When we were literally 2 and 3 years old, we were reading. My mother had us reading.
My son read at 3. He read a
2
whole
and
book.
3.
Wow.
Reading out of the newspaper.
Wow. Look at that.
That was educated quick.
And you know, black children develop quicker than white children. So whatever the white curriculum has, you can times that by 2 or 3. What the white kid can only get at 6 months, our child can get what a white kid gets at 2 years. They're faster. And this is why they keep talking this ADHD stuff. Because the black
Slow
kids
down.
are finishing their work too quickly.
And
They ain't got nothing to
bored.
do. So they start
Exactly.
acting up.
Yes.
The average ADHD black boy is mentally gifted and has never been classified
Yeah,
as such.
I have 2 boys. I have a 20-year-old.
Hold on, Mike.
I have a 20-year-old and a 10-year-old. So with the 20-year-old, I had problems with him in school, and I used to have to come into the classroom and sit with and see what was working for my child, what wasn't working. I have to basically regulate the classroom for him to be successful. And of course, they tried to suspend him like every other week. But the new one, the 10-year-old, when he was my baby, ABCs and 1, 2, 3s when I did his pamper with him, eye contact. By the time he was 2, he was identifying letters, numbers, words. He was reading. His IQ is 130. He excellent in school, gifted education. I don't have to even worry about it. We don't do technology during the week, only on weekends, and I promote reading, and he's advanced in school. So I have teachers call and say he's finished with his work like fast, and they like, well, what else did he have to challenge him? So then I have to give him stuff for him to keep challenged, but they can't keep up. And I taught in education. I know. I was a parent, a teacher. I was on all sides of the fence. So,
What made you change with the 10-year-old? What made you do what you did with the 10-year-old that you didn't do with the 20-year-old?
well, the classifications that they tried to give my child, and as an educator, becoming an educator, I learned what they talk about in the teachers' lounge about the kids, and so I wanted to make sure that this one, since he came 10 years after, that I was reading about homeschooling. He was gifted. I was reading about gifted education. So I just history and learned about this when I had him, and I just started working with him. And it's a proven fact. Your baby can read. I started making my own flashcards and giving them to him because he was going with vocabulary, and I always encourage the young parents to do that. When I worked, and I taught for 8 years in the St. Louis Public Schools. So,
Let me take real quick. Do you know why they desegregated public education? In 1954, why did they desegregate public education? It wasn't so our kids could get a better education, because you don't learn that and sit next to white kids, okay? The reason they integrated the schools is because they needed to contain and control the intellectual development of black children. Do you realize half of what America uses was invented by blacks in those poor, dilapidated one-room schoolhouses before we could go to school and sit next to white children?
That's right, yeah.
The gas mask, the three-way electric light, the self-lubricating engine, the shocks on the car,
Traffic lights.
we was inventing stuff, and white folks was looking like, yo, these black kids are so far advanced of our kids, even though we spending more than 100% on their education. So guess what they decided? We're going to integrate the schools so we can find the black minds we can use. Public education is a way you can draft, instill the African children who are high achieving so they can benefit the American social order, not the African social order. What if Condoleezza Rice was unapologetically African? What if Barack Obama was unapologetically African? What if Colin Powell was unapologetically African? They took them early, groomed them for their purposes. They integrated the school to put a check on the intellectual development of the black child. They can't touch us. They can't touch us. But we got this inferiority complex that says we got to be next to them in order to feel adequate. And that's our problem. You can take the slave out of slavery. But until the slave takes the slavery out of himself, he will never be free.
Discussing the Dallas Live with Ray J here, Dr. Umar Johnson in our studio. He's going to be at Better Family Life tomorrow evening, 6 to 9 p.m. There will be a subsequent Q&A and book signing. Books are $20. Come by and get your personalized copy and autograph. 5415 Page Boulevard. Doors will open at 4. Make sure you look for Dallas and Ray J. Come by and say hello. Get on our Facebook live stream as well. But do come out and participate in what's going on. And after Dr. Umar leaves our studio, make sure you get in touch with H. Cortez, the financial health mentor.
Bam!
And give me your full name, sir. Dr. Gerald Higginbotham?
Yes, sir.
Dr. Gerald Higginbotham. And he has something that's really going to blow your mind after this interview that we're doing today. Doc, what is it that Dr. Umar, what is it that you would want Black America to understand why we need to segregate?
Well, firstly, we don't need to segregate. We're already segregated.
Okay.
What we need is to build.
Disassociate.
You ain't got to disassociate. White
Let me
folks.
stop talking.
Shut up, Dallas.
White folks don't F with you unless you coming to work. That's the only time they deal with you. White folks don't deal with black folks. They only see you when you come to work for them. Or maybe passing on the street. We already segregated.
Okay.
Right. So we don't need to do no physical segregation.
Okay.
What we need is political economic independence. The Chinese ain't segregated from the white man, but they independent. They have their own. Let me say this. We've had 4 great struggles in our history as African people in America and around the world. The first struggle was a struggle for your humanity. If you remember the first 200 years of slavery, we had to fight to prove we were people. Remember, we were dehumanized by the United States Constitution. Not people, chattel. So for the first 200 years, we had to fight to prove our humanity. And by the way, we're the only victims of slavery in human history who were actually dehumanized. No other slave in human history, including the Jews in Germany, even though that wasn't slavery, they were never stripped of their humanity. We're the only ones. So the first struggle was a struggle for humanity. After we got our humanity, we had to struggle for what? Liberty, freedom from the chains. After we got the liberty, then number 3, equality. And now we at number 4. And this is the worst one. We ain't fighting for humanity. We ain't fighting for liberty. We ain't fighting for equality. We fighting for survival. The white man has gotten to a point in his development of genocide technology. He thinks he can have a world without black folks. He thinks he can have a world without black folks. And it ain't just here. I go to South Africa next week. The trend in South Africa right now, if they don't do something about the influx of Chinese and whites and East Indians, black people will be a minority in South Africa. We're already a minority in Trinidad and Tobago. I was there. In Trinidad and Tobago, the East Indians are the predominant group, and black folks are increasingly becoming an even smaller minority. It ain't just about getting rid of us in America. It's about getting rid of us across the world. As Public Enemy said, there is a theory of a black planet. See, here's the thing we need to get. You're the only people in America who ain't white, who cannot be deported.
That's right.
You're the only people in America who ain't white, who cannot be deported. Chinese can be sent back to China. Mexicans can be sent back to Mexico. You cannot be sent back to Africa because they psychologically destroyed your connection to your ancestral home. So what do you do with 40 million people you don't like, don't want? You have to create a system of genocide. And why do they hate us so much? I'll tell you why. Because every man in this room, whether we unemployed, underemployed, ex-felon, whatever our case, you're the only man on earth who can reproduce himself in the women of any other race.
That's correct.
You are genetic. Every black woman in this room, she's the only woman on earth. Any seed that is planted in her will recreate herself. God gave us a genetic predominance over the world, and the rest of the world hates us for us. That's why nobody stood up for us during slavery. Nobody stood up for us during slavery, and nobody gonna stand up for you now, because the whole world wants a world without black people in it.
Why Marcus Garvey and Frederick Douglass?
Well,
Go ahead.
I'm a blood relative of Frederick Douglass.
Okay.
So that's a bloodline thing. I also consider him to be the greatest black leader of the 19th century. Marcus Garvey, I consider him to be the greatest black leader of the 20th century. No black leader can you name did not borrow from, copy, steal, plagiarize, or learn directly from Marcus Messiah Garvey. His organization is the largest black organization in modern history and the only mass black organization that never took a penny from another race. Garveyism yesterday, Garveyism today, Garveyism tomorrow.
Where are the black leaders and why
Ain't got
aren't
none.
there? Why
After
aren't
they
there?
killed Dr. King,
My gosh.
when they killed Dr. King in 1968, the United States government said we can never let this happen again. The 60s almost destroyed America. It almost destroyed them. They had too many different factions of the black liberation struggle coming at them from every end. They were suffocated. You had Stokely Carmichael and SNCC. You had the Nation of Islam. You had the Garveyites. You had the Freedom Riders. You had the sit-ins. You had the Panthers. You had King. You had Malcolm. You had Mega. It was too much. The white man almost broke down over that, and at the same time, you trying to fight a war in Vietnam. It almost killed them. So after they killed King, they said, we got to reinvent this. Because having white people oppress black people doesn't look good for international relations and image.
That's right.
We now going to recreate black leadership. We're going to fund it, we're going to train it, we're going to educate it, and we will use black bourgeoisie leaders as the go-between between us and the black masses. You ain't got no black leaders in America. You know what you got? Black power brokers. And do you know what they do? They broker deals between the Negro underclass and the white power structure. They don't change nothing. They just broker a deal.
Hey Doc, would you classify Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, in as a part of those? Because I hear a lot of people with different
Absolutely.
opinions. Do you consider them, as I've heard?
And anyone who would argue against it, all you gotta do is ask them one question. Name one concrete gain black people have achieved under the leadership of Messy Jesse and perm-wearing Al Sharpton.
Nothing.
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 Do you consider them race pimps? I hear that.
Yes!
That's what they are.
I hear them.
That's what
I
they
hear
are.
that term.
Barack Obama made Al Sharpton a millionaire. Al Sharpton wasn't no millionaire before Obama got elected. When Obama made him the black mayor, you see how quickly that man's life and status then went up. Same thing with Jesse Jackson.
And then Jesse Jackson always get caught
Thanks.
off.
Michael.
Yeah, they catch him saying off.
No, they exposed him.
Remember when they
after
killed
was done
King?
with him.
got elected.
Remember when they killed King?
After they was done with him.
Jesse ran upstairs when they killed King and took
put his
blood
blood
and wiped
put on
King
himself.
blood on his body and flew back to Chicago and was anointed as the new leader. We ain't got no black leaders.
So that
Well,
was
you know
done.
what?
Black leadership is now a corporation. It's incorporated. And if you can convince white folks that you can control Negroes, you can get very rich. Because the only black leader the white man is interested in is leaders who can control the Negroisie.
A queen bee.
Yeah. And the black church, why has the black church gotten so quiet in the past 30 years? Excuse me, in the
All
past
of them get
17.
paid.
Because George Bush, 2000, Machiavellian, former Bush, last Bush, he created the faith-based initiative.
They all get
Up
paid.
until 2000, black churches couldn't get no federal money because separation of church and state.
Remember that?
But George Bush created a loophole where you can now give churches federal grants.
They ain't gonna say
Why you
nothing.
think black churches don't speak out against homosexuality? Why you think the black church ain't doing nothing about police genocide? Why the black church ain't speaking up against miseducation or mass incarceration? Because they being paid to shut up. FBI, faith-based initiative. Your preacher is the new informant.
That's correct.
Hello.
I agree with you there.
I'm a witness.
And you asked the question. This is what I done got that answer. With no
Yes,
more
sir.
cotton pick.
Exactly.
What is America?
We're not
gonna do
economically
with-
relevant.
But
We're not
if
economically.
we get together and sit down and talk,
We're going to talk.
We'll
But
talk.
you got to change that American free Negro.
no, Doc.
You going to have to change the American
Hey, Doc.
Negro, brother.
Hey, Doc.
Hold on.
You might learn something.
One doctor to a doctor.
From another doctor to another doctor.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
And see, one of the things that we have to stop doing is doing character assassination.
Yes, sir.
See,
Or you can even read him on his mic.
we are still dealing with the after effects of slavery.
Yes, sir.
Willie
I agree.
Lynch.
I agree.
And we've just been going down different paths. I can be able to show you some stuff on this side of the house.
Yes, sir. We're going to link. I promise
Because
you that.
one of the things I want to do with your kids, I don't know if you're familiar with cryptocurrency.
Mm-hmm.
I control 20% of the gold coin cryptocurrency market right now.
Okay.
Y'all listen now.
And we need to talk.
Those mics.
Okay, let's rock on
He's
that.
not hearing anything.
I gotta understand it thoroughly because a lot of people trust my word. So I got to understand it thoroughly, and it got to be transparent and legit.
Well, Doc, let me share this with you. I'm a man of character, ethics, and integrity. And I've launched the leadership revolution here in America, where we are changing the course of history. We've launched the movement. It's on like a pot of neck bones.
Okay, no disrespect, Dr. Higginbotham. This is not about the cryptocurrency today. This is about Dr.
No,
Umar
but we
Johnson.
will talk later.
Okay,
Yes,
that's perfectly fine.
Yes.
Doc, you had stated in one of your earlier videos, and I'm sorry, Ray J has a question.
I forgot it. Forget
Sure.
it.
I thought you had a Facebook Live question.
No, huh?
You had a Facebook
No,
Live
I
question.
have a question.
Okay.
But I forgot it. Just go ahead
After your
and come back to
LMNOP
me.
passes,
Yeah.
okay.
Don't worry about
You
it.
stated in one of the several videos that I've seen, black elders are still holding on to the fight,
Yes.
and they're basically obsolete. They are conservative now. We have to create our own leaders, and that starts from kindergarten on up.
True.
Speak
Now,
on that.
we don't throw the elders away.
You can't
No, I
Let
didn't
me
say that. I
clarify.
didn't say that.
Right.
I didn't say that.
But here's what I want to say. Black male America, black men, we have a big HNIC problem. It's a big one, and it has suffocated the black. Malcolm X was killed over the HNIC syndrome. You understand? So we as black men have to deal with this need to always be the only one up top. It's killing us. It's not African at all. It's not democratic. It's very dictatorial because we learned it from white folks. And what happens is when a black leader becomes of age, they fail to start grooming their replacement in a sufficient enough time so the movement doesn't have to take a break before we get back into the action.
Girl,
Who is
that's
Jesse
good.
Jackson
I'm
grooming? Who is Al Sharpton grooming? Much respect to the minister. Who is he grooming? The problem with us compared to other cultures, if you look at the Jewish community, you don't see the rabbi stay up there till he's 100 years old. He starts to transition out around 50. Look at the Italians. Look at the Chinese. You don't see 80-year-old leaders. You see 80-year-old advisors.
Right.
80-year-old counselors. We still need the wisdom, but you're not the man out front. And why is that? Because an elder ain't willing to take a bullet like a youth. And an elder doesn't necessarily carry the charisma of a youth. We don't throw them away. They're still valuable. It's just that their role transforms. But in black America, because black men have been so psychologically castrated. Think about it. There's not a black man in this room who is really allowed to manifest his true God-given alpha male gifts in American society because you're considered a threat. You can't be a man on Wall Street. You can't be a man at the job. You can't be a man in front of the police. You can't be a man in court. Everywhere you go, you got to tuck your penis between your legs in order to save your life. And so because of that, when it comes to the black church, black organization, black leadership, we get a taste of power and we never want to share it because it feels good to be in control once in a while. But what we have to realize is it's suffocating the black community. We don't need no more HNICs. We need leadership, but it needs to be a collective body. In other words, we are the leadership team for St. Louis. I'm not the leader. We are the team. So if you kill Dr. Umar, you still got 7 more. You take him out, you still got 6. You understand? The body keeps going because it's a multi-headed leadership. But in black America, we still got this outdated, archaic, he's up top, he knows everything. And when he gets taken out, because when the head is off, the body dies. We have to change our narrative of leadership. It's killing us.
Afro World is on here and they send their love to you. I
Peace
want
and
to
love.
let you know. And then I had someone on here, the Miss Divanshe. She said she homeschooled. And she said that we don't need to rush our children to school by age 5 because they don't have to, in the state of Missouri anyway, be in school until age
first grade.
7.
Yeah.
So that was something that I just learned.
Yeah.
Because I thought that by 5 you had to be in school.
No. You can homeschool forever now. You know that.
Right.
Your child ain't never got to touch.
Oh, I homeschooled for a while. I
But
did
here's
that.
my thing with homeschooling, though.
Okay.
And I'm a supporter of it. With our National Independent Black Parent Association, every committee, every chapter must have a homeschool committee, right? But I want us to understand something. Black people are self-hating and disorganized, right?
Yes.
You're not going to fix that with you educating your kids under your roof without his kids being there.
That's right.
You're not going to
That's
fix that with
right.
him educating his
I
kids.
was asked to
because
take on
there's
other
no
kids.
continuity
Yes.
of
Yes.
instruction.
Yes.
There's no social. Black kids have to be taught something no other child has to be taught in America, and that's how to get along with other black people.
That's right.
You
Oh my
can't.
God.
That's why I don't like cyber school. Everybody talking about why don't you open up a cyber school and just let the kids
Do it
learn on the
online.
computer? Huh? Half of all learning is social interaction.
Yes.
You lose that by putting them in front of a computer. You know why cyber school is so popular? Even though the research shows it's not really helping the kids? Because it's cost efficient. You don't need no teachers. You don't need no school build. You understand?
Yes.
All you need is a damn laptop. So everybody pushing a cyber school. Some of the Hoteppers is coming out with a cyber school soon. The Hoteppers about to come out. Yeah, they got a Hotep, King Tut cyber school thing. Dr. Umar, you want to get down? No, because that's not my concept. I believe in the good old-fashioned Booker T. Washington, Mary McLeod Bethune, in your face, open a book, chalkboard, do you have any questions?
You sick.
Garvey said something real quick. Garvey said, if the black man and woman are not careful, if the black man and woman are not careful, we will drink in all the poison of Western civilization and we will die from the effects of it.
I asked this question to an administrator at the school where I work. I asked, have you seen any of the hidden colors, 1 through 4? And what's the other one?
Out of Darkness.
Okay, okay. He said, no, I don't. I said, I really think you need to get an assembly of these boys and have them watch this.
The girls too.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, okay, but being male, we were talking about the
Yes,
boys.
I got you.
I said, they need to see this, okay, to understand, because they don't understand what Iona Prize is, Martin Luther King, they only know Malcolm X because of the X.
Martin Luther King is on an IQ test. One of the IQ tests?
Okay.
I lie to you not. 75% of the kids I tested, I asked them who was Dr. King. They don't know it. Black kids. Black kids
That's
don't.
all they forced
Black
you in Black
kids.
History Month.
I did an independent study when I was at Ford Motor Company, and I went right when Clarence Thomas was about to be confirmed for the Supreme Court. I asked them if they knew who Thurgood Marshall was.
No, I know they don't know Thurgood.
This was adults I'm talking about.
Oh, damn.
Adults. I asked if they knew who Clarence Thomas was. Well, they knew who he was because it was current. I said, you can't tell me in 2000, whatever year it was, that you do not know who Thurgood Marshall was.
Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, Martin Luther King, and Rosa Parks were automatics. Not no more. Oh, and guess what the excuse they give for why they don't teach black history in the schools? I was told this. I was told by a school board president, the reason we cannot put African American history in our schools is because if we do that, the homosexual community is demanding that we teach gay studies. In other words, it will look like we are discriminating against homosexuals by teaching black history and not teaching gay history.
Why do they
Well, that has nothing to do
equate
with that.
us
I know,
with
but
the
we have allowed
movement of
them. We have allowed the
homosexuality?
homosexuals to equate gay sex with black life.
Right.
That's a
You know what-
leadership
you know what,
problem.
there's
I agree.
another
I
issue.
Agree on that?
I agree.
Another issue with that too is that school districts
hold on.
are starting to change the narrative of our history. So in other words, they've changed the terminology
Yes.
from being slaves to being
Indentured
servants or workers.
Like we
Well,
volunteered for that.
I have a very rich family history on both sides of my family. I have some bloodlines to some really famous people. I don't recall any of them passing down family stories that said that they, my ancestors, my great-great-grandmother who was a slave. I don't remember any of the stories of her coming back saying that she enjoyed being raped by the master or that they gave them all the upper hand and everything that they
Right, yes.
needed
And
to be
that aspect
successful.
was a business as well.
Yes, it was. It was breeding.
It was.
Exactly.
Yes.
Remember now,
And that
after
is,
they outlawed slavery in 1808, how did they continue to get more slaves after 1808? America transformed itself from an import industry
They bred
to a breeding farm.
yeah, Americans.
Yes.
And I would argue we still breed slaves.
And that was on the
everywhere.
West.
We
Yeah,
still
I'm
are.
gonna hook up with
Everywhere.
you.
Oh, you have breeding farms all over the country. Imagine walking into a
This
house.
is
Oh,
why
That's the
I
reason
put-
why black folks live under the police state that we do too, is because police originally were slave catchers.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
they was never trying to protect the slaves.
Evolution of profession.
Exactly. So after
They were
slavery
catchers of
ended-
American
Give him that
slaves.
money. After slavery ended, that's when they were like, well, that's our way to keep black folks in line.
That
That's
was-
when
that
you
was
had Jim
American-
Crow.
Part of the structure
That was
of our society,
American
keep it in
slavery.
place, just change the name.
Exactly.
And
Change slave to criminal and catcher to cop.
Same
We
thing.
have a
Wow.
caller
And that
on
is
line
one reason why
Caller, you there?
I have out there on American
Caller,
on
line one, you there?
Facebook American slavery, so we can know our history. I got over 50,000 folks out here every day learning about American slavery, not black history, but American slavery. Our group here got to know our history. It's critical that we do, because failure to know our history, a lesson not learned, is soon repeated.
But why isn't American slavery part of black history? Why are you
Because
separate?
they're two.
They're not different.
Black is a nickname that came out of the surname slave.
And what is American?
It is it's a false, fake country.
But
that
why
we
do
got
you
on.
want to call yourself an American
And here's the
not
reason
black
why.
if they both false?
And here's the reason why. America owes the American slave culture $115 trillion for her inappropriate behavior. Didn't give them anything after she booted them off the plantation for their 246 years of service. We're not going to let them get off. This America's not going to respond to African American. But what they will respond to is the name slave. Look in the 13th Amendment.
Ouch.
And that's okay. Hey, Doc, that's okay, Doc. It's all good.
Oh, but check it out. One thing I wanted to say to
ahead,
you
Doc.
about the hidden colors.
Go ahead.
You told the administrator to show it to the boys.
Right.
That administrator, you know what he's thinking about, because I'm a former school principal. You know what the first thing he's thinking about?
Exactly, Michelle.
Can I justify
And save my
showing
job.
it by the curriculum? Because they don't let you be there. You lose your job
Yes.
when you step out.
It's back to
Howard
economics.
University is the mecca of HBCUs, right?
Okay.
Did you hear about what happened 2 years ago?
No.
Howard University fired
right,
3 black teachers at their own charter school for teaching African history
Yeah.
at a black college's black charter. And guess what the justification was? One of the teachers hit me up because we deviated from the curriculum.
Yes, I got wrote
They
up.
infused black
What?
history and lost their job at a black college's charter school.
I got written up for district walking in, because when Missouri State was taken over by the district of, when they come in, you have to have a curriculum at a certain time. You're teaching this and this.
Yep.
When I went to that class, they needed to learn how to write on the paper before they can do the writing assignment. So when they came in, I was still teaching them how to write on the line paper. I was in violation because they was for math. It was math
right.
time.
It's
So I
a
was supposed to
cookie
just
cutter
swoop
thing
up
now.
everything,
It's horrible.
and
It's
that's the No
absolutely-
Child Left Behind. I'm supposed to swoop up everything that the kid didn't,
Regardless if they got
if
it
they
or
didn't
not.
get it or not, that's on them. And I had to grade the work, and I'm like, I
crazy.
never did it. I always did.
I had white teachers tell me, Dr. Johnson, my students ain't learning nothing.
Anthony.
And not because I'm not a good teacher. Because they make us go so quickly through the curriculum that I'm not allowed to go back and check if they even mastered the previous skill in order to add on top of it. Public education is done. We got to get our kids out of that. The only thing they're learning is how to be gay and how to go to jail.
Caller, are you still there on line 1?
We have a caller.
Dr. Umar, when you went on line 1.
Caller on line 1, you live, Dr. Umar Johnson. Talk to me. I can't.
Ayana from Mississippi. Hold on.
Got somebody on from Mississippi.
I could just comment on something that I heard the gentleman say earlier. In reference to the 13th Amendment, now I'm a junior in high school and I have taken history, of course, before, that's a class taken every year. Lincoln himself said he only freed the slaves out of military necessity.
That's right.
So technically, if we really want to talk about it, he didn't free them because he actually felt like they were Americans and because they were born here, they had a right, to be considered Americans. He freed them because he didn't want his southern white boys and his northern white boys to be fighting anymore. So, that's just my 2 cents about it, but...
Junior in high school?
Yes, ma'am. She
That's a
got it.
student? That's a child?
That's a
She
child.
just said it to me in high school.
Go ahead, Doc.
Well, here's what I would say to that. When the United States, when the 13 colonies decided that they wanted to separate from the British Crown, Thomas Jefferson issued the Declaration of Independence. But when Abraham Lincoln decided he wanted to so-called free the slaves, he didn't issue a Declaration of Independence. He issued an emancipation order.
Piece of paper.
An emancipation of proclamation. And emancipation is not freedom.
That's right.
Do your history on the concept of it is a transfer of ownership. So when we were emancipated, all it did was free the slave owners of financial obligation to us, but we now became slaves of the state itself.
That's correct.
Exactly.
I agree with
Exactly.
Also, like I said, and also one other thing too, people should not pat Lincoln on the back too hard.
No.
Okay?
No.
I get
That was a trigger.
because see, when Lincoln first
break
took
it down.
office, Lincoln was pretty much a racist.
He ended as a
Until
racist.
He met Frederick Douglass.
He still was a
Once
racist.
he met Frederick Douglass, he figured out that, okay, black men can be intelligent. They know how to articulate what they want, what their needs are,
Well,
and what
remember,
their
he was
thoughts
part
are.
of the family.
Huh?
His grandfather was black.
Yeah.
You understand? Yeah, that's why Lincoln, if you ever see an original picture of Lincoln, he darker than Obama.
Yes, he is.
And that's why I tell people, don't pat Lincoln too hard
No.
on the back. I mean,
What did he
yeah,
say? He
may
said,
have
if I could
freed-
save this union and not free a single slave,
He do.
I would do it.
And that's the only reason why that we ended up in the Civil War. He didn't want the country split in two. That's the only reason.
Oh, they was losing.
That's the only reason. And the South,
Because they was
the South,
losing.
Exactly. And when the South said, you know what, we
getting
are
their
going to
butts kicked.
succeed, he was like, oh, really? I tell you what, I'm letting the slaves go. Plus, we go on to war.
Do some research
Okay.
on Thomas Jefferson, where he broke it all the way down to where how inhumane the black was. He
Yes.
didn't need a lot of sleep.
Yes.
They worked from sun up to sundown to the point to where their muscles detached
Well,
from the bone.
Oh.
But they had an satiable appetite
For black women.
for the black woman.
and that
But
is
they're
why
so
that's why
beneath
the
them.
Native Americans were not enslaved. They couldn't handle the work. They died off too quick. We were the only culture that could handle that workload.
And that is a testimony to your genetic superiority.
Caller line 2, you're on with Dr. Umar Johnson.
It's the miss.
Yeah, work, y'all, because this on fire in Studio 314. I had to call in and say something about the school system, particularly as it relates to how they are forcing sex and homosexual agenda in our schools. I do have a master's in teaching, consecration, and special education, and it is so true. A lot of parents don't know because letters are not always sent home, but around August and September of every school year, either Planned Parenthood or another partnering organization comes directly into the classrooms. Teachers are not allowed to get involved or to interrupt what is being taught, and they are presenting options that most parents would never teach within their own home. So parents need to be aware. They need to start asking their children about other organizations that are coming into the schools and teaching other agendas. They need to just start making sure that they are aware, because the schools do not always send notices out. And before you know it, your child has already been given all this information about alternative lifestyles, and it promotes homosexuality, sexuality being within our students.
Doc, I have one question to ask, and please thoroughly explain. Yes, Reggie.
One Facebook question
Go
after
ahead.
you get done.
Okay.
Okay, this one is really, really significant. James is asking, what significance does history have now? Let me explain. Blacks now kill each other daily. Senseless crime and violence. White people are not the only enemies. We are enemies to ourselves also. So what significance does history have now? Was the question.
I'm going to go back to Malcolm X, who said of all the disciplines that one can study, history is the one that is most likely to reward one's research. Psychologically speaking, when people forget their history or lose it, what do we call them? People with amnesia. You understand? A person who doesn't
Brain
know,
damage.
you can't function. If you don't know where you've been, you cannot function. If I took out your whole memory right now, you would not know what to do the second this interview was. You don't know where you live.
Exactly.
You don't know how to drive.
Exactly.
History is essential in order for you to have common sense, right?
Yes.
Now, What I think the brother is getting at is we can't live in our history. And I think one of the criticisms of the Black consciousness movement is we overindulge in the history so much that we're getting stuck. It almost becomes a form of escapism. I agree with Marcus Garvey and Frederick Douglass, who both said we should know it, take from it what we can use, and move the hell on. Because if you don't, then your history becomes another religion. But see, the reason he needs to know his history, look at what he just said. Now we kill each other. But the only reason you're going to find out why we're killing each other is if you know the history. 75 years ago, guess who was killing each other? Italians were killing each other. Jews were killing each other. The Irish were killing each other. Meyer Lansky wasn't black. Lucky Luciano wasn't black. Al Capone wasn't black. And why did they kill each other? Because up until 1940, Jews, Irish, and Italians were not considered white people. And because they were not considered white people, they were shut out of the American economic order. They sold dope, ran gangs, ran guns, booze.
Alcohol.
They did exactly what we do now. But in 1940, the United States government decided to upgrade them to full-time white folks, and they gave the Irish the police department, they gave the Italians the fire department, and they gave the Jews the downtown civil service local government jobs that they still control to today. You understand?
Yes.
They were given an economic stimulus package. All we doing is what they used to do. So don't blame us too much. You got to understand the history, because we only picking up where the white boy left off.
Caller line 2. You're on with Dr.
Corey.
Umar Johnson.
Program, I wanted to know, I've been hearing a whole lot about black history and it needs to be taught and this and that. And don't get me wrong, I do agree. So before I ask this question, give me a chance to explain. I just wanted to know what is the significance right now of the black history? And the only reason why, now I understand it's still important, but the only reason why I'm asking this is because we still see so much black on black crime and so much violence, and I feel like it has destroyed everything that our ancestors have created, and it's like it closed the pavement on the way that they've created. So I just wanted to know, like, what significance is it now, and how can we get them to understand that the killing has to stop with each other? It's like the white man is not the only enemy. Like, we have more than we're enemies to ourselves. Some people, like, it saddens me that I have to see people killing each other day by day. So I just wanted to know, like, how can we link that to relate to not just the school system, but just the violence that's going on also?
A people who do not know their history soon repeat it, my brother. If someone comes to me for therapy tomorrow, depression, crack addiction, low self-esteem, anxiety disorder, you know the first thing I do? What's the first thing a doctor does? A history.
Right.
When did you start feeling this way? What kind of relationship you had with your mom and dad? When you go to the doctor and tell the doctor you're sick, what's the first thing he does? A history. When you go to your lawyer because you need a lawyer to represent you on the case, what's the first thing a lawyer does? A history. You cannot solve a single problem under the sun if you don't understand the history of that problem, because the solution is rooted in a thorough analysis and understanding of the history.
Yes.
Never throw away your history. And also, I would add to that, from a self-esteem standpoint, my pre-doctoral dissertation was on a relationship between self-esteem and academic achievement in middle school black children. And guess what we found? That there was a strong correlation between how much they knew and how well they achieved. History is the foundation upon which our children build. Do you know how traumatizing it would be to put a black child who knows nothing about themselves in a room with a Chinese kid who knows his, an Arab kid who knows his, a European Jew who knows his? Part of being a psychological slave is not knowing where you come from. It is absolutely essential that we know our history, because a child's self-esteem and self-concept is largely derived from what they know their people to have been in the past.
Go ahead, Jay. We've got about 9 minutes. We're going to wrap it up because we've...
Well, Jawanja Kajufi said that in one of his books. I think it was called Kill the Seed Before It Grows.
Yeah.
He said by the time a white kid is in the 5th grade, they already know they somebody and they got something coming to them. By the time that black kid is in the 5th grade, all he's been taught is you was a slave, you didn't know nothing.
In Jesus.
Right.
Slavery in Jesus. And that's another problem we got. Black people, unlike everybody else, Chinese are Muslims and Christians. Jews are Muslims and Christians too. Arab, everybody got these religions. But we're the only people who will substitute our culture for our religion. Nobody switches out culture for religion. Listen, we're the oldest people in the world. 2 million years old. Christianity is 2,000. Islam is 1,500. Who would give away $2 million for 1,500? But that's exactly what we do. We let the white man come and take our culture and give us a religion, and we content ourselves with Jesus and Muhammad. The Chinese don't content themselves with that. They will be Christian and still love their Chinese history and culture. We're the only people who let people rob us from it and stick a religion in our face.
Any other questions before I ask my final question?
Well, you know what?
We have to learn the difference between religion and spirituality.
Yes.
They're two total different things.
Yes.
And I'm going to leave it at that.
I agree with you.
And
I
I
agree
might
with
gotta say
you. And we
something.
also need to rethink this sick thing of the black church being the most important institution in our community. We need to change that because the black church ain't doing nothing for the community. We need to make the school or the bank the most important institute. Think about it. The school is responsible for making new minds and new children, new adults. How can a church be holier than a school? A bank is responsible for building the infrastructure of an entire community. How can a church be holier than a bank? We got to do something about this black church situation because they're robbing us as much as the Chinese store.
Before Cortez gets started, one quick thing along this
3
line.
o'clock, easy.
I saw a post that you put up about black churches supporting Trump. You
Yes.
expound on that just a little bit.
Well, remember, the black churches are free agents. They looking for money. So the minute Trump got elected, they jumped right off the Democratic bandwagon. And some of them re-registered as Republicans, and a lot of them didn't re-register, but they just ran with Trump because they're still American constituents. The black pastor is a free agent. The only thing he loyal
He can
to,
be bought.
thank you. The only thing he loyal to is his pocket, and then the first thing we say is what? The church is not political. The church is the most political institution in the ghetto. When somebody runs for mayor, when you want the black vote, where the first place you go? Church. To the church.
It's a business.
And we letting them stand on the sideline like they don't play a role in everything that's going on in the hood. The church used to be the vanguard of the black community. Look at it now, a total disgrace. It then went from an advocacy organization to an accommodationist organization.
I agree with you.
Cortez.
Well, I'm going to switch gears a little bit because now you start talking about bank, you start talking about my language a little bit. I watched your interview on the Breakfast Club, and you talked about how we are systematically denied access to capital.
Yes.
And you said something very profound. I think the listeners will benefit now. You said that they will never fund our liberation.
right.
Can you expound on that a little bit about, being systematically denied access to capital?
People who are trying to exterminate you, the last thing they can do is financially empower you because that puts you in a position to fight back against your extermination. Black people, it has been decided, are to be a permanent underclass in this country. That was decided right after slavery ended. So any means that allows us to build ourselves up must be cut off. But here's the situation though. Even though we'll never get access to the banks, the capital in the banks, we can give ourselves access to the wealth we already got. This is why I got a problem with the fact TD Jakes ain't got no bank. How can Creflo Dollar not have no bank? How can a church that brings in $2, $3, $4 million a year don't have no bank where people can access wealth? That is absolutely insane. And then they take black people's Jesus money to a white bank, and the white bank takes your Jesus money and floats a loan to white businesses that come in St. Louis and push you out of your own neighborhood with grandma's donation in the church basket.
We've got more money in HSBC than all black banks combined. And most people don't know what HSBC stands for. Hong Kong, Singapore Bank Corporation.
That's right.
And we've got more money in those banks than we have in all of the 20 black banking establishments combined. So
And they
that's a
just
problem.
shut down one of our oldest black banks in Detroit or Chicago. They just got shut down by the FDIC, mismanagement of funds. They got sabotaged.
And then when you're talking about money too, one of the reasons that the churches sometimes have to pimp themselves out because they don't understand money. Why don't all churches have endowments? Why aren't they investing the doggone money that's coming in every Sunday?
Are they
So
investing?
Why don't they get
self-funded?
insurance?
Hold on, y'all missing one big thing. To add to my brother, hold on.
Go ahead.
The pastor only exists because his people live in poverty.
That's right.
We got to be clear now.
Slavery.
The church
Back to
is a
slavery.
form of an intoxicant. It is a drug that you get high on once a week so you can put up with the racism you're going to experience the next 7 days. If the pastor empowers his people too much,
He's gone.
he's gone.
He sells you hope at
Because
the end of that sermon.
I worked in the
sells
church. The churches are ran by the upper.
That's right, bougies.
They come in. We have a front person.
You
of
mean
course.
religion or
The rich, like if it's a Baptist, Presbyterian,
That's right.
Baptist, Antioch, whatever, they're ran by them, and that is the people that are the government. So they come in and run them, and they worry about bringing in money, and then the members don't understand finance. Even if you did a corporation and you was running a Fortune 500 corporation and you brought in money to assess their congregation to know. Now, Friendly Temple, they do understand business because
And they have a bank.
they're using their
they partner
members
with
and turning things into it.
that's the
But
difference.
that is faith and finance. They have those courses that they offer. I went to one of the seminars. So it's, you have to.
Come up to the chair.
Corey, please come up to the chair. I would be remiss in not letting you say something, brother.
Man.
Listen, I've been listening outside. I had my little one with me. So.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Been outside listening. A lot of great information, man. I appreciate you. I really do. I appreciate you too. I've been listening to all this, and believe me, it's empowering. H. Cortez, been watching you a long time, but you, powerhouse. That's all I can say. That's all I can say to this guy.
Black
here,
power.
man. That powerhouse. I
Dr. Umar,
appreciate
we
you
got
coming.
about 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Give us your takeaway.
Woo!
And I wanted to ask you why the black child should not pledge allegiance
Oh my God.
to the flag. I think I'm going to extend. I need you to answer that.
Yes, sir.
And then I need you to do your takeaway.
Not in 2 minutes.
Pledging,
I'm going to give a little bit more.
pledging allegiance is a form of psychological terrorism where black children are indoctrinated with the belief that they have to be loyal to the same people that's killing them. The worst thing you can do is make a black boy put his hand over his heart and pledge to the flag that's responsible for all of his people's miseries. It's terrorism. It's public school is psychological terrorism. Public school is psychological terrorism. That's the real Al-Qaeda right there.
Give us your takeaway.
My takeaway, quote from the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, who said, "Without confidence in yourself, you are twice defeated. In the race of life, with confidence, you have won even before you have started." The Honorable Frederick Douglass, who said, "I prayed on my knees to freedom for 20 years. I prayed on my knees for freedom for 20 years, but the good Lord gave me no freedom until I got up off my knees
Yes.
and start praying with my feet."
You
That's it.
say.
Get up off your knees.
We want to thank each and every person that has participated in this glorious.
This is one of the best radio interviews I had in a minute, brother.
Well,
Y'all did it.
hello.
St. Louis
We
did.
do that, huh?
I put this up there with the Breakfast Club interviews. We did it today.
We
Make sure
did
we
that.
upload this to YouTube.
My people hitting me all up and tell them to turn it up.
I really want
Way
to
to your
extend
fans.
a warm welcome and thank you.
Thank you.
I actually reached out to you last year.
Did I
and
hit you back?
No, you didn't. But
It wasn't the
lose hope.
appointed time.
exactly. Just
I
like
got
when the gentleman-
ADHD, so hit me a couple times.
Okay, well I got elemental
Y'all
too, so
sharing.
we want to thank you for unapologetically sharing the truth.
Thank you,
that's been
Leslie.
needed to be
Thank
put
you,
out into
Monica.
this
Thank all my
community.
faces.
That's why we are here.
Yes, honey.
We
Studio
need to
314.
help wake up our people to wake up.
Yes.
Wake up, world.
Yes, like you come on our show and put it out there. You have to deal with it now.
You got to deal with it.
Okay.
Agree or disagree, you got to deal with
So
it.
we want to hugely thank you for being a guest on Discussions with
Thank
Dallas.
you so much.
Live with
Thank
Ray
you
J
so
here.
much. Yes,
The
yes,
Easy
yes,
Treatment
yes.
Lounge here.
Easy Treatment Lounge. Yes.
Yep, stay
Eric
tuned.
Easy Weathersby.
2 hours.
School teacher, the banker, whatever else that she does.
School teacher, the banker.
Corey Johnson.
Corey, the miss said hello, wave to her.
It's been a pleasure. You will be at the Better Family Life tomorrow evening from 6 till 9. Learning the people. Doors going to open at 4 o'clock. Book signing and subsequent Q&A afterward, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And if you have any Kansas City family, I'll be in Kansas City Sunday at the Mary Kelly Center, 5 to 8.
Mary Kelly Center, 5 to 8 in Kansas City. Dr. Umar. Oh, Ray J?
Yes, real quick. I would just like you to take this opportunity to just thank your audience here. Everybody that's on here is a fan of yours. They're saying thank you so much. They appreciate everything that you've done. And I just want to let you know some of them that may not be available to come to Better Family Life is why we live stream.
Yes, ma'am.
So, you know, I call it Facebook TV and
Yes.
powered by Studio 314 under Entertainment Media 3 Productions and my production company, X-Ray Productions.
All right.
All right. So thank you so much, brother. I got this brother on speed dial, y'all.
Wow.
All right.
Wow,
All
come
right.
through tomorrow. Bring the
Okay.
children.
All
Hey,
right.
also, real quick, everybody, don't forget, in about 2 hours, a little over 2 hours, tune in to the Easy Treatment Lounge tonight. It's open mic. Whoever want to call in, questions, comments, especially when we're taking comments about today's show. So please tune in. I'd like to hear some feedback, and hopefully, if time permitting, Dr. Umar Johnson will call in tonight, and we're going to talk a little bit about the music side of things. So, Prince,
The Illuminati
Michael
situation.
Jackson, yeah, all the
Whitney
mysterious.
Houston, Sam Cooke,
Yeah.
Pop, Big.
We're going to get into all of that. So,
Everybody else who
y'all tune in tonight, 10 p.m. Central Standard Time in the lounge.
Okay. Will not be on tomorrow.
That will do it for us. We will not have a show tomorrow because we will be at BFL, Better Family Life, tomorrow so that we can get in and listen to the lecture. Okay? Thank you guys so much. I don't know what happened with my first broadcast, but it was on, but I couldn't read your feed. I got it this time. Thanks so much. Make sure that you listen to H. Cortez Talking Money in the morning. It's Free Fall Friday. So we're going to make sure that you all jump on. Now try to invite as many people as I can, okay? Hey, hug somebody and love somebody today because you might be the only one that they get that from. I love you to life and on purpose, and I will see you on the other side.
They're going to say I was anti.